First of all, facts don't care about your fragile ego. You can show up with all the posturing, the smug looks, and the rehearsed sound bites, but if your foundation is built on half-truths and hollow slogans, it's going to collapse under real scrutiny. Just because something gets applause from a certain audience doesn't make it true. That's not how truth works. You don't get to invent your own version of reality and expect everyone to nod along politely. We're not here to protect your feelings. We're here to expose the facts. You don't get to play the victim and the bully at the same time. You can't stand there yelling about freedom of speech and cancel culture, while using your platform to silence opposing voices with ridicule and distortion. That's not defending liberty. That's weaponizing victimhood. You either stand for open, honest debate, or you're just another power chaser using buzzwords to stir up the mob. The act might work in echo chambers, but it falls apart when met with real critical thought. Accountability isn't a one-way street. You lecture others about taking responsibility for their actions, but where is your own? You amplify misinformation, smear vulnerable groups, and then shrug when called out, acting like you're above it all. That's not leadership. That's evasion. You talk like you're trying to fix society, but all you're doing is profiting off its division. If you're going to talk about values, then start by embodying them. Otherwise, spare us the lectures. You speak in that same old tone, soft but smug, calm but loaded with condescension, as if sounding composed somehow validates everything you say, but presentation isn't truth. Using a patronizing voice while pushing dangerous narratives is not wisdom. It's manipulation. Being calm doesn't make you correct. Truth doesn't depend on tone. It depends on evidence. And if we line up your claims against the facts, it's not even close. You've become an amplifier for the loudest lies. You don't challenge the misinformation. You magnify it. You take debunked claims and repackage them as questions worth asking, then act innocent when the damage is done. You're not facilitating dialogue, you're feeding delusion, and when things get ugly, you backpedal and pretend you're just being misunderstood. No, you're understood perfectly. The problem is what you actually stand for. Real leadership isn't saying what people want to hear. It's saying what they need to hear. It means telling uncomfortable truths and standing for principle, even when it's unpopular. What you're doing is the opposite, pandering, pleasing, and playing it safe with your base. That's not courage. That's cowardice wearing a confident mask. It's easy to ride the wave of a movement. It's much harder to speak up when the crowd's going the wrong direction. Let's be honest. You're not here to inform. You're here to perform, and every time you reach for a talking point instead of a real point, you lose ground. You can mock, you can deflect, but I'm going to keep coming back with facts. You can't gaslight your way through a real debate. If you're going to step into the arena, bring substance, because I'm not here for sound bites. I'm here to dismantle the lies, one comeback at a time. You don't get to play the victim and the bully at the same time. That's not how morality works, and it's certainly not how integrity works. You can't act like you're being attacked every time someone disagrees with you, while simultaneously launching attacks on everyone who doesn't fit your narrow world view. The double standard is exhausting, and people are starting to see through it. If you're going to throw punches, don't whine when someone throws one back. There's this ongoing performance where you claim you're just a voice of the people being silenced or marginalized by some so-called elite. But at the same time, you use your massive platform to mock, belittle, and insult people who challenge your ideas. You can't have it both ways. You can't shout others down, then act shocked when you're called out. You wield influence like a weapon, but pretend like you're the underdog. The truth is, when you're sitting comfortably in power, pretending you're oppressed is nothing more than a tactic. It's emotional manipulation designed to draw sympathy while shielding yourself from accountability. If you're really all about open dialogue and honesty, then stand behind your words without hiding behind the victim a badge every time you get challenged. If your ideas are strong, they'll hold up without the theatrics. But your strategy is always the same. Stir up outrage, push baseless claims, and when the backlash hits, act like the world is out to get you. That's not bravery. That's a cycle of provocation and self-pity. People are exhausted by it. If you're going to speak boldly, then take the heat when it comes. That's part of the deal. Otherwise, you're just running a one-sided game. What makes it worse is how you expect others to take personal responsibility while you dodge your own. You demand accountability from those who disagree with you, but offer none yourself. You hide behind emotional appeals and manufactured outrage, using them to shut down real conversations. That's not defending freedom. That's just protecting your brand. You frame criticism as an attack, disagreement as persecution, but disagreement is part of a healthy society. If you can't handle pushback, then maybe your ideas aren't as strong as you think they are. The moment you cry foul over fair debate, you reveal that it was never about truth or fairness. It was about control and ego. At the end of the day, you're either in favor of open, honest discussion, or you're not. You can't preach resilience while constantly demanding people shield your feelings. If you want to engage in public discourse, do it with the courage to stand behind your arguments without hiding behind the curtain of false victimhood. Otherwise, you're not leading a movement. You're staging a tantrum. Let's talk about accountability. It's one of those words you like to throw around when it's convenient, especially when you're pointing fingers at everyone else. You demand that young people take responsibility, that marginalized groups stop making excuses, that critics stop blaming the system. But when it comes to your own actions, your own words, your influence, the consequences of the narratives you push, suddenly accountability is nowhere to be found. You sidestep it like it's optional, as if your platform comes without responsibility. You speak with authority, as if you're some moral compass guiding people toward truth and strength. But when what you say spreads division or fuels falsehoods, you don't step up and own the impact. Instead, you shrug it off, or worse, double down. You act like you're just having a conversation, just playing devil's advocate, as if those disclaimers erase the damage. They don't. People listen to you. They believe you. And when they act on the misinformation you feed them, you don't get to pretend it had nothing to do with you. It's convenient to demand others own their mistakes, while you keep pretending yours don't exist. You'll criticize a single mother trying to make ends meet, saying she needs to be more responsible, yet ignore how your own rhetoric contributes to policies that harm her. You'll blame the poor for being poor, but not the system that traps them. A system you help defend with your misleading commentary. You lecture people from a high horse you didn't build, acting like morality only flows in one direction, from you to them. When called out, you pivot, you make it about tone, about how people are too sensitive or how you were misinterpreted. You hide behind vagueness as if being unclear makes you immune to criticism, but you know exactly what you're doing. You're careful with your phrasing, crafting statements that carry just enough plausible deniability to give yourself an escape route. That's not wisdom, that's cowardice dressed as cleverness. Real accountability means facing consequences, not deflecting them. It means owning the influence you have and recognizing the power you wield. You don't get to use your platform like a megaphone and then pretend you're just whispering into the void. You have millions of eyes and ears on you. What you say shapes perspectives, drives headlines, and fuels emotions. That's not a small thing, that's a massive responsibility, but you've built your image around being the one who tells it like it is. So when the truth turns against you, you can't admit it, because admitting fault cracks the persona. It shows that you're not the all-knowing, all-wise figure you present yourself to be. But here's the thing, no one is. And if you had the courage to admit when you were wrong, people might actually respect you more. Instead, all we get is deflection and blame shifting. So if you want to talk about accountability, start with yourself, own your words, own your influence, own the results of the world you promote. Because until you do that, you're not leading a conversation, you're escaping it. And the longer you keep running from your own role in this mess, the louder that truth will echo every time someone pulls back the curtain. If you want respect, start by being honest. Honesty isn't just about telling the truth when it's easy. It's about doing it when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, and when it might cost you something. You can't claim to be a straight shooter while twisting the facts cherry, picking data, or presenting one-sided arguments meant to rile people up instead of informing them. That's not honesty. That's manipulation dressed up as sincerity. And people are catching on. You constantly talk about values, about being real, about cutting through the noise. But the noise is coming from you. You create it with emotionally charged statements, fear, mongering, and conveniently ignoring any information that doesn't support your narrative. You pretend you're being bold, but what you're really doing is selling distortion with a confident tone. If you want real respect, stop spinning and start leveling with people. Honesty means acknowledging complexity, not pretending every issue is black and white. But your version of truth is designed to divide, not unite. You package your talking points as common sense, when in reality they're oversimplifications that leave no room for nuance. You use buzzwords and slogans to trigger reactions rather than promote understanding. That's not how honest conversations work. That's how manipulation works. It's dishonest to claim moral authority while dismissing entire groups of people based on stereotypes. You call for responsibility and character, but never apply those standards to the people in power who share your views. That's selective outrage. That's performative integrity. If you really cared about fairness, you'd call out injustice no matter who's responsible, not just when it's politically convenient for you. People don't earn respect by acting like they have all the answers. They earn it by listening, by learning, by admitting when they're wrong. You don't do that. Instead, you hide behind confidence and confuse volume with validity. You assume that if you say something forcefully enough, it must be true. But repeating something louder doesn't make it real. It just makes it louder and more dangerous when it's based on misinformation. There's nothing brave about pushing falsehoods and then blaming others when the truth comes knocking. Real honesty means facing hard facts, even when they contradict your own message. But every time someone presents a fact you can't counter, you change the subject or make it personal. That's not being real. That's dodging the truth because you're afraid of what it would mean to admit it. If you want people to take you seriously, stop pretending honesty is a performance. It's not a style, it's a principle. One that requires consistency, humility, and a willingness to confront your own role in misleading people. Respect is earned when truth is prioritized above popularity, and right now, you're not even in the same room as the truth. Emotional manipulation isn't wisdom. Just because you know how to pull on people's feelings doesn't mean you're offering real insight. There's a difference between connecting with people emotionally and controlling their reactions to protect your argument. When you frame every disagreement as an attack and every question as disrespect, that's not teaching, it's gaslighting. Wisdom doesn't need theatrics. It stands on its own, even when emotions are calm. You use stories and selective anecdotes to prove points that crumble under real scrutiny. You find the rare exception and present it as the rule, building emotional pressure until people feel guilty for questioning you. That's not intellectual strength, that's emotional baiting. If you were confident in your logic, you wouldn't need to wrap it in guilt and shame to make it stick. But instead, you lean on sentiment because it's easier than building a coherent argument. Real wisdom welcomes tough questions. It doesn't run from criticism or try to silence opposing views by turning up the emotional temperature. You don't need to make people feel small or embarrassed to get your point across. You do that because it puts you in control. You mistake silence for agreement, but it's really discomfort. You're not convincing anyone. You're cornering them into compliance. You like to take someone's pain, hold it up, and twist it until it suits your point. That's not compassion, that's exploitation. When someone tells their story, you should listen to understand, not weaponize it. But you reframe their experiences, wrap them in your narrative, and pretend you're helping them by turning them into a lesson for your agenda. That's not guidance, it's ego. You've mastered the art of sounding thoughtful while actually avoiding substance. You use emotionally charged language that sounds deep but leaves people more confused than informed. You insert pauses, shifts in tone, and dramatic phrasing to make things feel profound. Even when there's no real content behind the words, it's all surface. You hope the performance will distract from the fact that there's no foundation underneath. Wisdom isn't found in how well you deliver a line. It's found in the clarity of your thinking and the strength of your reasoning. But your arguments rely more on mood than meaning. You paint yourself as the voice of reason, but rely on emotional highs and lows to manipulate the audience into feeling you're right instead of proving it with facts. That's not leadership, that's showmanship. At the end of the day, if your points can't stand on their own without emotional packaging, then they were never strong to begin with. Wisdom has no fear of calm. Truth doesn't need a performance. So if you want to be seen as wise, stop trying to be impressive and start being honest. Let go of the manipulation, and maybe then people will actually hear what you're trying to say. Real leadership requires courage, not convenience. It's not about saying what's popular or playing to the crowd. It's about standing for something even when it costs you. But what you're doing isn't leadership, it's performance. You sit in a comfortable position, say what your audience already wants to hear, and call that bravery. That's not boldness, that's pandering. True leaders challenge their base, not cater to them. You talk like you're some kind of moral warrior, but you won't take a single step outside your safe zone. Every word is crafted to keep you in good standing with your followers. You play it safe, speak in absolutes, and never risk offending the people who prop you up. That's not leadership, that's branding, and when real issues arise, when hard truths need to be told, you're silent or vague because convenience always comes first. Leaders tell the truth even when it's not well received. They take hits, lose popularity, and keep moving forward because they care more about doing what's right than what's easy. You haven't shown that. You retreat the moment something doesn't serve your narrative. You fold under the weight of real opposition, not because you can't handle it, but because you're too committed to preserving your image. There's no courage in standing on a stage where everyone already agrees with you. There's no bravery in repeating slogans to a cheering crowd. If you want to be seen as a leader, step outside that comfort. Say something that challenges people who support you. Defend a principle, not a party. Show people that you're more than a mouthpiece for outrage and applause. You avoid controversy that threatens your brand, but real leaders run toward it when it means defending the truth. You don't want to take that risk because deep down you know that your appeal is fragile. It relies on staying in the middle of the pack, never rocking the boat too hard, never standing alone. That's how you stay relevant, but it's also how you stay small. Leadership isn't about echoing popular anger. It's about rising above it. It's about guiding people out of the chaos, not dragging them deeper into it. But when you speak, you fuel division. You don't build, you inflame. And that's why people are starting to see the difference between those who lead and those who perform. between those who serve a cause and those who serve themselves. So don't call yourself a leader until you're ready to lead through the storm, not just surf the wave. Leadership is hard. It's lonely. It requires a spine, not just a microphone. Until you're willing to take a stand that might cost you something, you're not leading. You're just clinging to convenience, wrapped in the illusion of strength. You've confused fame with credibility. Just because people know your name doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. Popularity is not a substitute for expertise, and having a big audience doesn't magically make your opinions valid. But you wear that attention like a badge of honor, as if being widely recognized gives weight to every word you speak. In reality, it only means more people are watching when you get it wrong. You thrive off the applause, the views, the viral clips, but none of that guarantees that what you're saying is useful, honest, or even accurate. People follow train wrecks too. Spectacle draws a crowd, but it doesn't create truth. Your fame is built on being provocative, not being insightful. You repeat the same buzzwords and platitudes, and when they get clicks, you call it proof you're right. That's not intellectual validation. It's just a feedback loop of noise. You act as if attention equals impact, but the kind of impact you're having isn't about growth or understanding. It's about division and misinformation. You're not helping people think critically. You're helping them pick a side, dig in, and shout louder. That might earn you recognition, but it doesn't earn you credibility. It earns you a reputation for performance, not for truth. Fame has made you believe your words are untouchable. When you're challenged, you don't reflect. You deflect. When you're corrected, you don't consider. You get defensive. You think you're above scrutiny because of the size of your audience. But real credibility invites scrutiny. It withstands questions. It evolves with evidence. You avoid all of that because deep down you know your platform wasn't built on substance. There are people with no spotlight doing more to help others in a day than you do with an entire broadcast. Why? Because they care more about being correct than being popular. Meanwhile, you chase relevance like a drug, reshaping your persona to fit whatever narrative keeps you in the conversation. It's not about values or truth, it's about staying visible. You leverage your fame to present yourself as some authority figure, but the louder you get, the more obvious it becomes that there's nothing holding your argument up. You've built a house on sand, hoping the glare of the cameras will keep anyone from noticing its sinking. But people are noticing. They're realizing that volume isn't the same as vision, and popularity isn't the same as purpose. So the next time you equate fame with wisdom, remember this: 1,000,000 followers won't make a lie true. Attention fades, but credibility, real credibility, comes from humility, from being willing to learn, from admitting when you're wrong, and from standing by the facts, not just the applause. Until then, all the noise you're making is just that, noise. Let's be clear, standing next to power doesn't make you powerful. Proximity is not the same thing as influence, and echoing the words of those in charge does not mean you're leading anything. You like to pose as if you're holding the line, standing strong, making waves. But all you're really doing is repeating what those in authority have already decided. You're not challenging the system. You're hugging it tightly and calling it resistance. You wrap yourself in the image of strength, as if repeating the same hardline stances makes you fearless. But repeating power's message isn't courage. It's submission disguised as confidence. You're not shaking the table. You're polishing it. You're not questioning anything. You're reinforcing it. That's not leadership. That's being a loyal servant to the narrative that benefits you the most. You act like you're calling out corruption, injustice, or dysfunction, but only when it's politically convenient. When it's someone you support or align with ideologically, suddenly your standards vanish. You lose your voice, your moral outrage goes silent, and your concern fades. That kind of selective accountability is a clear sign that you're not working for the people, you're working for the powerful. True strength is in standing alone when needed. It's in telling the truth even when it threatens your position, but you cling to power structures and personalities that give you protection. You use their reach to amplify your own, and you pretend that your access means you've earned authority. What you've really done is trade your voice for volume. You've given up independence for the illusion of relevance. You measure your worth by who you can sit next to, who you can quote, and how close you can get to influence. But being near the fire doesn't mean you control the flame. It just means you're willing to get burned for attention. And the problem with that is, once the people you align with turn on you or fall from grace, you fall with them. Because your power was never yours to begin with. You want people to think that you're a fearless voice in the middle of the storm. But all you're really doing is standing behind a shield someone else built, yelling from behind it like you're out front. There's no risk in what you're doing, there's no independence, and deep down, even you know that, you're not taking a stand, you're just standing nearby, hoping the glow reflects well on you. So if you really want to be powerful, try stepping away from the script. Say something that challenges your allies, take a position that costs you, let go of the approval and see what you're made of. Because until you do that, you're not powerful. You're just a mouthpiece standing in someone else's shadow, calling it sunlight. And finally, if you're going to step into the ring of public discourse, come with a full deck. This isn't a place for half-baked ideas, vague talking points, or empty slogans. If you want to be taken seriously, bring the full weight of preparation, evidence, and intellectual honesty. Don't show up with a few catchphrases and expect people to treat you like a thought leader. This is a space for serious conversation, not performative posturing. You act like being loud is the same thing as being right. It's not. Volume doesn't win debate, substance does, but every time you're pressed for real detail, you resort to deflection. You dodge the heart of the matter by shifting blame, by making it personal, by spinning out hypotheticals. That's not argumentation, that's avoidance. If your point can't survive a direct question, it's not a point worth defending. There's a difference between engaging and distracting, and you've chosen distraction every time it counts. You flood the conversation with anecdotes, emotion, and drama, hoping nobody notices the lack of clarity behind your words. It's a tactic that works on the surface, but it falls apart under scrutiny. If you were really confident in your views, you'd welcome pushback instead of treating it like an attack. Every time someone presents you with facts that challenge your claims, you play the same game. You cast doubt on their motives, question their character, and move the goalposts. That's not how an honest conversation works. That's how someone protects a weak argument from being exposed, and the more you do it, the more transparent it becomes. People aren't fooled anymore. You can't claim to be a truth teller while constantly avoiding the truth when it's inconvenient. You say you're here to have real discussions, but you show up unarmed, relying on confidence to mask the absence of content. It's not enough to look sure of yourself. The truth doesn't care how certain you sound. It cares how much you actually know and how willing you are to stand behind it. Engaging in public discourse means being ready to confront complexity. It means being open to criticism, to correction, to learning something new, but you don't come with that attitude. You come with defensiveness and a rehearsed persona. You're not here to exchange ideas. You're here to protect an image. That's not discourse. That's performance art. So if you want to be taken seriously, show up like you mean it. Come with facts, come with clarity, come with the humility to admit when you're wrong. Until then, you're not part of the solution. You're just another voice in the noise, hoping that confidence will cover what substance cannot, but in the end, it always shows. The truth has a way of surviving the noise.